Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Remote Work Wednesday on behalf of the Remote and Online Initiative and the K-State Extension Community Vitality Team. I'm Ron Wilson, Director of the Huck Boyd Institute for Rural Development with K-State Extension Community Vitality. Thanks to Deborah Cole, who's our state program specialist and program leader coordinator in community vitality for the K-State Extension team. This is a project of the Remote Online Initiative. The website is kansasremotework.com. And through that program, we're offering month-long online classes which enable participants to become trained and certified as a remote worker or a remote work team leader. And an outgrowth of that is Remote Work Wednesdays. This is a free Zoom call on the second Wednesday of each month for anyone interested in remote work. And so next month, it'll be again on the second Wednesday, which falls on May 13. The speaker will be our former Kansas State colleague, Dr. Stephanie Bannister, who will talk about leading a nationally dispersed team, a national organization that's working remotely across the nation. The goal of these calls is simply to learn about the opportunities and challenges of remote work and hybrid work. And what I'm hearing is that there are, you know, remote workers, but hybrid work seems to be a prevalent mode of operation. And so we're going to hear about that from our friend Devi Rathod, my fellow Rotarian. She's a professional engineer and a remote or hybrid worker. Debbie's background is really amazing. She first studied information systems and graduated from the University of South Florida in computer engineering, focused on computer hardware. At Catholic University and the University of Maryland, she studied biomedical engineering. She earned her master's degree at Johns Hopkins in physics and systems engineering. She worked in the electronics and engineering field in the Washington, D.C. area and then in Los Angeles before meeting her husband, who's from the Salina area. They live near Salina, and she commutes to Manhattan while working remotely on Fridays. Devi is configuration control manager and sustainability program manager for Ultra PCS, an electronics firm recently acquired by Eaton. We've asked her to share her experience and suggestions of tools for hybrid work. So, Devi, please, we welcome you and look forward to your comments.
Okay, hi everybody. I will try to share my screen and we'll start with a presentation. That's this one. And then bear with me for a second. Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, so hybrid work is not for everyone, but is
I'm
it for
not
you?
seeing yours. I'm not seeing your screen, Debbie.
You're not seeing it. Okay, let me see again. We
We were just
practice this.
we were just talking about
Hold on.
Zoom misadventures
Yeah, let me
before we get started.
close this again.
Welcome, Callie. Welcome, Katie. Glad you're with us.
Okay, share. I'm going to ask you, do you see my ultra screen there?
I do.
Okay, so now we can start. Let me get back to the slideshow. And I may have to PowerPoint. Okay. Let me check the transitions because that's what was the problem before. And it's good, so we should be able to go from the beginning. Now, do you see it?
Yes,
We do.
that's great.
Okay.
That's
So,
good.
is hybrid working for you? It's not for everybody. Remote work is not for everybody, but we'll go through this and see what you think. So I'm Devi Rathod. I'm an engineer for Eaton, which was formerly Ultra PCS. That's my contact information there. If you have any questions, you can always email me. We're going to go through these 5 bullet points in the slides. First is my experience with hybrid and remote work, and then the drawbacks, and then the benefits, because we always want to end with the good stuff, and the tools that you can use for hybrid working, and then conclusion and Q&A. So he will go into my personal experience. By the way, I don't do this and I don't do this, but you can. Um, so I've my experience has improved over time. I first started working with Micro Lambda was my first experience with hybrid working, and I was living in the DC area, and I turned remote for Micro Lambda after I moved to Kansas. Um, it was completely remote at that time. Then I worked for another company because Micro Lambda was closing, and I'm not going to name the company, but that was a very, very negative experience working remotely because of he had very bad trust issues. Then I worked for Solus Technologies in LA. That was a contract experience that was totally remote. I would go in once a month for a couple of days, but mostly it was remote work. And then now I work for Ultra, which is now Eaton. And my current experience is in office and remote on Fridays. But then I started out totally in office. And then I went to remote because I broke my back and my ankles and I had to be in a wheelchair and stuff. So I was there remote for about 6 months and then I came back and now I'm hybrid. Um, the drawbacks to remote working or hybrid working are you tend to put in too many hours. That's my problem is I was tending to put in too many hours. Some people don't put in enough hours. The way that you fix that is you set a general schedule for yourself and you make it known to your boss or whomever needs to be interacting with you at the time, and you stick to that schedule. Um, the other thing is you get left out of ad hoc meetings at the water cooler and or when they just say, "Oh, we've got to meet us in the meeting room for 5 minutes and we're going to do a stand up." You don't get to be in on those unless they have some kind of mechanism to include you on a phone call or something. You get left out. So what you can do for that is you can check in with management and coworkers often to find out what was what went on during the day. And if you missed anything, could they give you a synopsis? The next thing is there are a lot of missed opportunities for workplace social activities, and you really need to socialize with your workers. It's important to get to know who they are and for them to get to know who you are. So try to attend those periodically when you can. It's more difficult to build trust and rapport with your seniors and your coworkers if you're remote. You have to make an effort to be available at all reasonable times and provide usually close of business reports on a daily basis, but they may not want that. They may be too busy to read those. Maybe you do it on a weekly basis is what we do here is we do a weekly report. Um, then there are the technology glitches, which we all know about those. Get friendly with your IT team. And you're also, don't forget to get friendly with your home internet provider because sometimes it's that the problem is on your end, not the IT team at work. And take the time to learn how to fix simple things on your own so you're not constantly calling your IT guy and saying, help me fix this when you could have really kind of fixed it yourself. Um, you oftentimes, and this has happened to me a lot, your demeanor is misinterpreted when you're communicating via email. They can't see your face, they can't hear your tone of voice. Sometimes it comes across, I'm a very direct person anyway, but my emails are even more direct. Sometimes I'm busy and I want to get stuff done and I send it, not intending to sound angry or short or anything like that, but it comes across that way. So do a phone call first when possible, and then an email follow-up. Always, if you do work remotely and you conduct business via phone, make sure you follow up with an email because you'll want to refer back to that conversation or vice versa. Email and then follow up with a phone call so that they know that you're not being pushy or whatever. And then you have the cybersecurity challenges, and you really should, with today's environment, you really need to follow your company's security best practices. And you could probably go to some websites to teach you there. I mean, the Navy has a website that teaches you some really good, it's called the Cybersecurity Challenge. I think all military use the same cybersecurity challenge. You can go there and you can take that course and get certified, and it will teach you a lot that you need to know. Like when you're working from home, you should really, if you're working on very sensitive information, you should really close your windows. I have all the blinds closed on my windows when I do remote work because I do work on military stuff, and um, people shouldn't be able to fly a drone by and take screenshots or stand outside your window and see what you're doing if they know that you're working on something that they want to know about. You really should watch those kind of things. Um, the advantages are, for me, there are a lot less distractions when you're working from home because my husband is gone during the day. I don't have anybody there asking me any questions or anything. I get a lot more work done. So I'm more productive and it's quieter. It frees up your morning and evening time so you don't have an hour commute to work and an hour commute home. So you can focus better while you're working because there's less pressure to complete your home responsibilities. You have an extra couple of hours to complete those responsibilities. Um, Fuel and maintenance savings, definitely. It's beneficial for not just you, but it's beneficial for the employer too, because nowadays they're starting to have to report CBAM, which is the carbon emissions and things like that for their remote workers and their traveling workers. So there's less environmental impact and there's significant savings for both the employee and the employer. You definitely can expand your employment opportunities because I worked in LA from Kansas, which was really great. So you have greater job prospects and the employer can expand its talent pool for employees. Um, Greater retention for employers. Job stability is for both the employee and the employer. They tend to, if they have a good working relationship with the remote workers, they tend to be able to, the remote workers tend to be a lot happier than if they're having to spend all their time on the road driving to and from work. The other thing that a lot of people don't think about is employee parking. Now, our parking lot is very full at this time. If we're going to have to expand our parking lot if we hire any more people because we just are all vying for a space to park and we're parking in areas that's not even a parking spot. But the employees saves parking fees if you work, for instance, in downtown Baltimore, where I used to work, and you had to pay $90 a month for a parking spot. Um, but you save parking fees if you have to pay for a fee. And then you also, building parking lots, building and parking lots are a lot less crowded. So not only is it parking space, but office space too. A lot of buildings don't have the room for more employees. And if they work from their home or remotely from an office space that they rent or something like that, then the company doesn't have to worry about office space. So the tools that I recommend for remote or hybrid working are, first, you have to have reliable high-speed internet. You have to have that. Um, you have to have a dedicated laptop with sufficient processing power, and you should have a webcam so that when you do have meetings and stuff, they can see your face. That's it's it's important that they see your face, if not in person, at least over the internet. We also here we work with our UK um, office, and pretty much daily I work with my guys over in the UK, and we see each other all the time via screen. So it feels like you're really working together. You have to have a printer. You don't necessarily have to have a fax unless your company requires you to fax stuff in, or your customers for that company require faxing. But generally, you definitely have to have a printer. I highly recommend screen expanders because it's hard to work off of a small laptop where you have this small screen, and if you're opening multiple documents or multiple um, applications, if you have the screen expander where you have the two screens on either side, and so you end up having three screens, and it's a really nice to have that. So I recommend that. A headset you have to have because you're going to have to talk with people, and you don't want the background noise from, say, your puppy or whatever, if it's in the house with you. Um, you need a dedicated workspace. You cannot just work from your couch because there are too many distractions. It's not ergonomically good for you to sit in on a couch with your legs dangling down and stuff. So you want to have a dedicated workspace and make sure that it's set up properly. You need your company will probably set you up with a VPN access or a company cloud platform. Um, you need Teams, Zoom, or Slack or something like that. I recommend Teams and Zoom, but it's up to your company. And you need the necessary software tools. So if you were working in the office and your IT guy would set you up with specific software tools, you would ask him to definitely make sure, him or her, to put the necessary tools on your laptop and make sure that you have everything you need to do your job. And then I recommend you for yourself, if they don't give it to you, to download and pay for a copy of a good project management tool. Excel can do it, but it's not as good for your personal time and management to use project. I use Project Manager. That's the tool that I use, but you can download any kind of project management tool you want to, and it gives you a way to do Gantt charts and stuff like that. So you can put what you want to do in a project, and then you can track it, you can plan it, you can track it, you can see where you're behind and where you're ahead and stuff like that. It's a very good tool to have. So that's the conclusion. And if anyone has any questions, please, I don't know how Ron wants to work this, but go ahead. I'm going to close my screen and let him start.
Well, thank you, Debbie. I thought that was really outstanding and on the mark. Folks are welcome to put questions in the chat or unmute if you like. Feel free to ask questions. I had a couple things I wanted to ask. So Project Manager is the project management tool that you
Mhm.
use. I'm not familiar with that. How much of that is accessible to a supervisor or a coworker? I mean, can they see, or do you use Project Manager to formulate a report to your boss, or how the client, or how's that work?
You Not for reports, but for, yeah, you can actually, yeah, you could export your project plan and your progress and all that. but you don't really need to export it. If they have a license, you can, if you're using it as a remote worker and your boss has, he can have an account on your project manager. You can allow specific people to have access and they just download it. It's an easy download. And then they can see everything that you share with them. They can see your project. They can't, unless they buy a license, they can't add or subtract from it, but they can see it. But they can also, and it's not expensive. I think I pay like $30 a month or $35 a month for project manager, but I use it for more than just work. I use it for, I've got a barn with horses. I manage my barn with it. I manage my taxes with it. I mean, it's really a nice little tool to have. But yeah, it's way better than Excel. Very, very much better than Excel. It's so easy, user friendly. The interface is so user friendly that it doesn't take much to know how to use it. So
Good, good. Well, that's really really good to know. Because um, I love the way you outlined the advantages as well as the disadvantages of remote work, and then kind of the responses to address those. Letting your boss know that you're productive, is an issue, it seems to me.
it
And
is.
so being able to document, you mentioned close of business reports daily or weekly.
Yeah,
That
and honestly, so I would recommend daily when you have a new relationship with your
oh,
new job until they tell you stop. I can't stand it. You're sending me too much information. And they'll tell you how often they want to see it. But you have to develop that trust first. They have to trust you. They have to know that you're doing your job and not sitting and watching TV. Um, and they have to see results. You have to make sure that they see your results every every periodically, and they'll know if you're doing your job or not.
one of our previous speakers on this series made the point: relationships matter, whether it's online
Hmm.
or in person, really. And
Yes.
so that really reinforces that point. At the end of the day, it's really about value. Are you
Mhm.
contributing to the progress of the business? And so
Yep.
if you can document that, and your supervisor can see that evidence, that's very
Hmm.
significant, I think. You mentioned you work with the folks at the United Kingdom,
Hmm.
your business partners there. I don't remember what the time zone difference is, but what's your experience with that, and any suggestions you'd have in that regard?
Yeah, so they overlap with us. They overlap. There's a 6 hour difference.
Okay.
And there's an overlap, and they're in there in the morning, early morning when we get in. So sometimes we start at 8, but sometimes if there's a meeting that needs to be had, you're going to have to get up a little bit early and maybe start it at 7 because, or 6 even sometimes. It depends on everybody's availability, but generally there's a window where everybody's at work. It's just not that everybody's available. It needs to be there during those times. But pretty much it's not bad. Now there's a if you're working, say, from Saudi or something somewhere where there's a much bigger time difference, then you're probably going to have to adjust your work hours to overlap with if that's what you're doing every day, you need to adjust your work hours to overlap. But for me, I'm working every day, but we have a good 3 or 4 hour windows where we can take care of what we need to, and then we work on our own, and then we get back together the next day and say, "Hey, I got this done, and I had this problem. Can you help me with this?" And yeah.
Excellent. Deborah?
Yeah, I have a question. So I just two things. First, I really super appreciate the tact with which you handled your negative experience. I really appreciate that. And so with that in mind, I trust you'll handle this question the same way. I am curious, we've heard from some presenters and others that we've worked with remotely that In the case of a scenario where someone works in a high cost state like California
Mhm.
and but is working remotely for that company in Kansas, that sometimes there's a price adjustment in the salary that's offered to the employee in Kansas, meaning it could be adjusted for cost of living and the salary could be less. Is that something you've run into with any of the companies that you've worked with?
I have not. I was paid what they would normally pay someone, but keep in mind that your taxes are going to be a problem. You have to be paying attention to that because they will pay you from California. And I ran into a problem where they wanted me to pay California taxes and Kansas state taxes, and my tax accountant had to work all that out. So you have to be cognizant that there may be some glitches the first year that you do this until everybody gets used to what you're doing. But no, I have not had that issue. Although that may be a selling point for an employer. If if you want to work remotely, and you don't want to move to where they are, and they if there's a lot of competition for that job, you can say, hey, I'm working from home, I don't have to pay the gas, and that'll help a little bit. On my end, the reason that I work from home on Fridays is because the salaries in Kansas are a little low. And so this helps me out by not having to pay the gas back and forth on Friday, and it also helps me out with my home responsibilities too, because I have farm animals and farm responsibilities and stuff. So it gives me those hours that everybody here has when they're in Manhattan. They go home, they're 5 minutes away from their home. I don't. So I don't get to see my husband as much as other people do on a normal basis, and it gives me a little bit of extra time on Fridays. I I could probably work more days remotely, maybe, if we all agreed on it, but I would rather not because it's easier for me to set up here at my desk with everything that I need, interact with the people, because I interact with a few different departments here,
Right.
and it's easier to be face to face. It's just easier,
Yeah.
and I prefer it to be here. It's just that it just helps me a little bit financially. But yeah, there's a yin and a yang. You have to weigh what you should ask for or what you should I would you can I mean demand you can demand a certain salary, but you also have to be cognizant that they may decline that and find somebody else that will come into the office every day for the same price. So
Right. Thank you.
mhm.
Um, and I appreciated the list of tools, equipment. One thing I've wondered about, I really don't have data about that. What in your home office does the employer provide the equipment, or do you have to get your own, or how does that work out?
That depends on the employer. So when I was working for one company, I used my own laptop because I wasn't doing anything sensitive, and I used my own laptop. My laptop was better than the one they were going to issue me, and I said, hey, I want to use this one. It's faster, it's better. But for most of my work that I've done, I've had to use a company laptop because you have to have a secure laptop. And they usually provide that for you and set you up with it. Um, your equipment at home, that depends on the employer again. I mean, if they want you to have a specific desk, or they want you to, there's some companies are really picky about how if your wrists are going to get injured from being on the computer all day, or if your back is going to get sore from sitting in a chair, and they'll provide you a chair and all the little pads for your laptop and your keyboards and all that. Um, it depends. And I will say that you should be very careful about having coffee around your company's equipment, because I had a cat jump over me while I was working on my company laptop, and it killed the laptop because coffee spilled. And so I don't drink anything at home I don't have any cats anymore, but I don't drink things around my home like that until I'm done with work, or I'll go take a lunch break and I'll go have my lunch at my kitchen table. I don't mix that with my office at home. Just something for you guys to be aware of. It can happen.
Well,
Luckily, we
it
were
can
able
happen.
to recover stuff off the disk, but that could have been a disaster.
Well, and I can, imagine the cat, but I'm clumsy enough. It could be, I
Mm,
flick a fly away and anything can happen. As I think about it, I'm here. I brought this laptop from the office, but I got my own printer and you know,
mhm.
the toner and stuff. I'm doing because I guess I'm using it for home use as well. But the
Yes,
printer,
that's another thing I would say is most companies have a policy you use. They have, they understand that sometimes you're going to print something out that's personal. They understand that. Don't be using their computer for a bunch of other stuff. Um, and also be careful when you print things out because you can print them out on your home computer, but if you're on a company computer and it's got all these printers you can choose, you could be printing out something from your insurance that has your social security number and stuff on a company printer remotely away, and you don't want that to happen. So be aware of which printer you're printing on when you're from a remote location.
great point. It's like the difference between reply and reply all. You want to be very
Yes.
conscious about that distinction.
Yes. Be careful about that.
Oh my. Any other comments or questions?
No, I'm sure I'll come up with stuff that I've had, but not at the moment. I can't think of it. But yeah,
I don't see anything further in the chat. Gosh, I'm thinking about you working with a business in LA and not having to be on that LA freeway traffic for an
oh yeah,
hour and a half.
and when I went to visit, so it was near the university, so it was really close. There were a lot of hotels and stuff really close, and they had a running spot for me in a hotel that was within walking distance of the building. And so for 3 days a month, the same 3 days every month, I was there, and that was my room every time I was there. So it wasn't bad, and it was really nice to not to have to move to LA, which is would have been I wouldn't have been able to afford it. I wouldn't have been able to take that job. But it was a contract job anyway. They wanted a contractor. They wanted a position for 6 months to get them going, and then they were going to hire somebody locally to do the same job. So I got them started. I told them how to do it was a business development position, and they didn't know what they were doing. They were university guys that started up a really great company, and they wanted to know how to do government contracting and business development. So I started it up for them. I got their initial customers for them. I brought in some really good business to get them started. And then I handed it off to the guy that they hired after my contract was over. But it was fun, and I'm still friends with all those guys. So Silvus Technologies, yeah,
Hmm. Fantastic. Well, and a classic example of how a business can access talent that's not in their city limits, that's not in their region, that's not,
they can.
within their own
Yeah, and
scope.
if they need a temporary worker like that, so they want to see if they can, they didn't want to invest in somebody that was local at the time because they weren't sure that paying somebody $100,000 a year would work out and that they'd get a return on investment. ROI is very important to everyone. So if you're a remote worker, you definitely have to prove yourself by returning more than what they're paying you. And it was a very good relationship. We got some good business in Hawaii started for them, and some good business in Arizona started for them, in New Mexico and stuff. And it was all government contracting. So it was yeah, it worked out for them and it worked out for me because when that contract was over, I found my job here, And I didn't want to fly out anywhere anymore. I wanted to work in Kansas and stay with my husband because we had responsibilities here at the time, and it was nice to be able to have that opportunity at that time, and good for the employee and the employer.
Boy, that's wonderful. When remote work is a win-win.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not seeing any further questions or comments. Debbie, thank you for a really, really terrific presentation. Give you at least a virtual round of applause for a really
Thank you.
presentation
I
today.
was happy to help. Yeah, I was happy to help. So
Really,
if anyone, even if they're not weren't on this, if they get a copy of this and they want to talk to me about something, or they need somebody as a mentor, if it doesn't take more than 15 minutes every couple of days or so, I'm willing to help if they need some advice or whatever.
thank you. And really appreciate your advice today. And it'll be helpful to a lot of folks. And
Good.
we appreciate you and your community involvement as well as your comments today. So thank you. Thank you very much, Debbie. Just a quick announcement about next month. Again, next Remote Work Wednesday is May 13. We'll be hearing from Stephanie Bannister to talk about working with a national organization that she heads up and works remotely with folks across the country. So make sure you join us for that. For now, thanks for joining us and have a wonderful Remote Work Wednesday. Good afternoon, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.